Welcome to Expat American. I am the Expat American. Is Russia free? Can you be free in Russia? In this episode, I talked to an entrepreneur, a businessman, who spent most of his life in South Africa and has chosen to come to Russia for freedom. Why would he think such a thing? Would you do such a thing? Let's talk to him and find out right now. Got it.
Joseph, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, man. So guys, I'm with my new friend. I met this guy through the algorithm. It was an algorithm suggestion, and I don't know a whole lot about him because I want to interview him now and discover it for the first time with you guys. But what I do know is that he lives in Russia right now. He builds unique, interesting homes. Some may say strange homes, certainly intriguing. And he seems to have an African accent. And since I'm curious about Russia and other people discovering Russia and how Russia compares to the rest of the world, I thought it'd be great to have him on and talk to him and learn more about another international man of mystery.
Yeah, I was born in Uzbekistan and stayed until the age of 2. Then I moved to Moldova for 8 years. And at the age of 10, I moved to Moscow. And at 14, I moved to South Africa for 25 years. I have never worked for anyone else in my life, which is quite interesting. So from the age of 19, I started my own business. There's this home behind me, actually, I built it this summer for myself and my wife, and it cost me $5,000 on all the materials. Really spacious, 6 by 6 meter, 18 by 18 foot and 18 foot tall.
So basically you were born, if I got this right, in a Soviet country, and then as a teenager, you spent some time in Moscow and then off to Africa?
I'm a man of the world. I've been to America, I think 3 times. Yeah. At the age of 42, I'm finally got my own home, which is debt-free. The bank took my home away in South Africa after 12 years of repayments. Everything I've done there, they're just like...
You came back to Russia because you were going bankrupt?
Well, I went bankrupt a couple of times. It's the first time because I left my business and moved to the land, thinking that when I get to the land, all my worries shall perish and I'll be living a happy and zen life. Of course, that doesn't happen. It's a beautiful story and I'd like to share it separately. And because I've had a repetition of that story a few times until I finally realized that no, it doesn't matter where you live.
It never ends. It never ends. We can get to the goal, it can get better, but then we have new things that we get to work on.
Why did I move to Russia? So I read this set of books called Anastasia. The books are very inspiring on living on the land, on your 1 hectare with your loved one, and being buried under the apple tree when you die, and reincarnating back into your garden, into your 1 hectare that's now a fully fledged fruit forest garden. So beautiful story. It got me really inspired to come back. And yes, to answer your question, I had nothing more in South Africa, just totally bankrupt, totally in fear, living in constant fear. I've had a robbery at a gunpoint in my head. Once I had a robbery with a knife and a hammer where they tied up my ex-wife and my son. I had about 9 robberies all around with stuff stolen constantly. And it's a violent crime. South Africa is dangerous. It's freaking dangerous. Obviously, the whole apartheid story, but now I was never part of the whole apartheid story, but people are very angry, the black people at the white people. So that whole capitalistic mindset is like this. So I wanted to come to something where people put relationships at the forefront. And Russia was the only place that I could think of. That
you don't recommend South Africa. It's dangerous. I assume it has beautiful nature still, but just not a good time to live there because of recent historical events, right?
Strangely, I wouldn't recommend many other places except Russia. And there are a few reasons. If you have more than 3 kids, you get property for free and you get money if you have kids. Inspiring and building on people who want to create families. There are no building codes. I can build what I want, as big as I want, below 60 feet, which is plenty. Move in at any point of the build that I want. And if it falls on my head, it's my own fault. And I believe that's very, very cool. That's very, very cool.
Freedom.
Total. I mean, I was on a tiny house website actually this morning because I'm running a drafting course and I want to show how to design a home that fits under the building code radar in US. And I had to check the sizes and they really jam you up. I mean, I'm not going to go into the details, but it's tiny. That's why it's called so tiny. But on the tiny house website, they write, oh, it's because people have this zen for nature and less consumption and all this other BS. There is no tiny house movement in Russia at all, okay, firstly. And secondly, the truth is, the reason there is a tiny house movement in America and UK and all these other countries is because people don't have freedom to build what they want. So they are forced to live in little boxes that they have to, preferably on the wheels. These things cost $40,000. I have a home that's 8 times bigger and it cost me 5. Wow. And it got mass, thermal mass. Okay. This thing is a 40 grand tiny house and you can't even move your bum left or right there. So I believe the tiny house movement has nothing to do with consuming resources and everything to do with people like choked down to death of can't do this, can't do that. You have to be it's insane. But
so it's overregulated. Right.
It's way overregulated, but it's spoken of. It says, no, it's for your own benefit, but it's not.
Do you feel like you know enough about America as far as for Americans that are watching it to give them some idea of the difference between Russia and America?
Yeah, it's very similar to South Africa. It's the urban sprawl works very similar. And mentality, I'd say, is very similar. It's like this capitalistic ridden mentality. In South Africa, like my wife wanted to go for a walk, and Alasha, can we go for a walk? And you'd understand because you're living now in Moscow or somewhere there, and you're like, let's go for a walk. And you and your wife take a picnic or not, and you go for a walk, and you go to the nearest park or you go out into nature and you enjoy a walk. In South Africa, we couldn't go for a walk. I'm like, well, there's a doggy park, but it's paid. There is a city park, but it's very dangerous. We prefer not to go there because my friend's been robbed at a knife during the day. At a knife point. There is this urban sprawl with fence and private property and fence and private property. You drive out of town and we finally found a piece of land and it wasn't fenced. So we took a walk. Immediately there were people there right there, please get off our property, it's private property. And eventually it was like, well, I couldn't take Zoya for a walk anywhere because it's all private property and trespassers will be shot. The signs are standing everywhere. And yeah, I walk anywhere I want. I can walk anywhere. I walk out right now. I've got a lake, 5 minutes walk there. I've got a forest. I'm looking at the forest right now. I'm across the road. We actually bought to the edge of the forest. I've got gas line. 99.99% of all nature is free. There's 0.01% that could be a paid park, and they might have something really, really, really nice, like a Kew Gardens in England, where it's under glass with little tropical exotic plants. You might be paying for that, but 99.999% of all nature, all parks, and even like properties. If there's a pathway, you can walk through somebody else's property. Somebody's going to shoot you.
Why do you think it is different in Russia than it is in the United States, South Africa, as far as crime and freedom?
Just because Russia is so abundant with nature, although America is also very abundant with nature, but then you get to you want to park your tiny home somewhere and suddenly you have a police at your doorsteps if you're so many days over.
You're a businessman, I'm a businessman, but you mentioned a couple of times insinuating that capitalism may be a bad thing. So how do you split that up? Because I was raised to believe capitalism was good, and now I'm in Russia, which I can see there's capitalism here, but capitalism as an idea is not such a religious monument here. So I am open-minded because I thought Russia was a bad place my whole life, and now it's so not a bad place from what I can see. It's incredible. So I'm open-minded to maybe capitalism is wrong. I don't know if I'll ever get to that point, but how do you split this hair?
I don't believe capitalism is wrong.
Okay.
I believe it has a place, but I believe why Russia is so special is because we've had the socialistic thing drilled into us during the USSR times, and even prior. We have a very rich history, very rich traditions that when I'll interview you, I'm going to ask some deep questions, like just a little teaser, like what would happen if the whole Russian ethnos would, the Anglo-Saxon governments would succeed in destroying Russian ethnos. And if that was erased with all its traditions and traditional values, how would that impact the world? But that's the questions for you for later. So right. I don't think capitalistic model is wrong. I believe it's has its place. And I was very much into the whole capitalistic thing, like before. I was a businessman, and I still am. But what changed for me now that I came from Russia, after all the robberies, and some of these robberies were my own laborers because I didn't treat them well, and arguments about money and this and that, and feeding them baked beans whilst I was eating really fancy meals on my land, 12 years back. Now what changed for me is I'm still a capitalist, but I'll enjoy a meal every single day. The workers are working, I eat with them. My wife packs boxes. Obviously, I don't have many workers. It'll be like 1 or 2 guys at times. She'll make little containers. They're all the same. We split, we eat the same, we chat together, we eat the same food, we drink. I look after the workers like on equal. And this is what we're trying to create. The big difference, I think, between South Africa and maybe even America is that the third world countries, the Latino laborers, like the white boss would never sit with their workers and eat together. And I think that's, I think if we can bring capitalism, but where we pay fairly to people, first of all, and like do things like eat with them or share meal together. Just the way we communicate with them. There are people who are helping us and not slave drive, them to death. And that was my biggest fault in South Africa, is that, I often thought that you're paying them money, but they're in essence slaves working for cut paper. Can I just say it like that?
So you think that capitalism unchecked can divide society into different groups, because some do very well and some do not. Yeah, I mean, I remember, I know one of the founding fathers, when the United States was started, they were saying this is this great experiment, and one of them said, this experiment will only work for Christian people. So meaning if you have a Christian foundation, then this governmental system that we're experimenting with will work. But if you're not going to be, let's say religious or God-fearing, it's going to collapse. It's not going to work. So I wonder if that's the thing, where capitalism is a good ingredient, but if it becomes the church, you could say, or the top, or the main core of the whole thing, it's going to degrade.
I don't believe it's got anything to do with church. I think there's many asses who go to church every Sunday and they do terrible things for, so they think, good reasons. It's a much deeper subject, and it's got to do with our egos. We have trauma now from our childhood that we carry. That's first thing. And second thing that generates self-hate is things that we do on a daily basis that are not nice towards us, like people are not nice. And for example, we go to work, we're scared to lose our home, or we're scared to lose the job. So the boss may shout at us and we just smile and, pretend that everything is fine. And then you're left with that feeling of like somebody's shat on your soul. Childhood trauma and daily circumstances create a feeling of self-hate. That feeling of self-hate, we want to buy bigger things, bigger house. Like I bought in 2007 this house for 25 years indebted because of triple story. I mean, I could have easily afforded a single story house and paid cash for it, but no. With my self-suppressed and unprocessed childhood trauma, and now I want to prove to my father and to everybody else in the world that I am good enough. So I buy myself a triple story home and I get myself into debt. Because people think that through things they will bump up, English accent, bump up, yeah, or and people believe when somebody is feeling good, if I suppress them and push them below me, then I bump up above them. So with these just two, there's much more, but this is the core of what's happening, why people treat laborers like slaves, because they want them down there, because when they're down there, they feel up there. And so I gave you the reason why that happens, and I gave you, so that's the cause and the effect. The effect is that when your boss now shouts at you and you smile because you're scared to lose your job because you're going to lose your house, you'll come home and you'll lash out at your wife, and your wife will lash out at your child, and your child will lash out at the younger one, and the younger one will go and kick the cat. We both agree capitalism cannot be the core, the foundation, let's say. I've been thinking religion needs to be the foundation, but you say no. So what do you feel like a healthy society is built on? A healthy society is built on honor. Honor, to first of all, starts by processing all your childhood trauma and things that went that put scars on us, that they need to be processed. not to think them over and over again. Process, analyze, write them down, and shed that baggage. That's first of all.
Right.
And second is honor. Honor for that you respect yourself, that you have enough self-love, and I mean it in a deeper sense, that you don't let anybody bully you. Okay, and if they bully you, like back to that situation with the boss, and it's not just the boss. It's here's another example. This land next to us was for sale, and we already put down a deposit. And the lady came back to us, and she's an agent, and she said, "Well, could you instead of taking the bond, could you take a credit from the bank for like whatever needs? You know, that's what it's called." And the difference between the two is if you take the bond and you can't pay it, you lose the land that you buy. And if you take like credit for whatever needs, if you can't pay that, you lose what you have, such as this land, which is paid off cash. And I'm like, why? And she says, no, because I realize if you pay me 1 million rubles in cash, I mean, through the bank under contract, and 500,000 you pay me under the table, then I won't pay tax. I said, but you knew that from the beginning. I said, yeah, but my tax came up to 60,000 rubles, which is like $600. It's negligible. You know, usual person would go and like bite the lip and purchase and pay that extra tax, get manipulated. Let's call it what it is. It was a manipulation, because she basically said that my price has gone up by 60,000 rubles. If you keep it as that, if you keep on taking, you know, go with the credit bond from the bank, then please settle my tax, which she knew about. She's a property agent. Now, the problem with that is that when you just go for it and you go against your own truth, okay, and you go follow through with this manipulation, suddenly you purchase this land, suddenly something will bankrupt, your child will get sick, not your, but you know, you lose some money, you break a leg, and you can't link that all of that has happened because I ate somebody else's feces. They manipulated and I took it. I ate it. Yeah. So it's very, very important because the world keeps on doing that. People keep on doing that, and then they can't link cause and effect. Only when you start doing a lot of analytical work, and that's where my wife comes in, because she's been writing a journal since the age of 8. So when you start doing analytical work, you know, writing, you'll see cause and effect. Oh, I did that, and that happened. So Joseph, there's no short answer to your question. It's a very deep one. Here's another little example that might be interesting. Me as a little child, can you picture like mom busy, dad busy? Yeah, everybody's busy, job, there's no time for kids, okay? USSR, or anywhere in the world for that matter, okay? I'm walking to kindergarten alone. I am walking to school and back alone. And I come home, USSR, 1990s, we have Freddy Krueger playing at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, just as you come home, just as kids come home from school, on all the TV is playing horror movies. That's how America was destroying the psyche of Russian people. And by the way, it's not Americans' fault, you know, but we took it. When I get a flu, ill, yeah, my mom was near me, giving me jam, giving me honey, rubbing my chest, and hyper care, hyper love. So in my mind, I said, okay, I make a conclusion. This is how programs form. It's very important to answer your question. So I form a program that when I'm ill, my mom loves me. So that happens too many times, and I definitely realize, okay, God, that works. So I need to get ill to get love. So now when a 38-year-old man goes, I go and break my knee, so my mom could sit with me in the hospital. You know, this is how programs form. This is how deep the story gets. And unless you work with this stuff, you'll keep on breaking yourself, breaking relationships, breaking everything, and blaming it on God or my cat or on fate.
Why did you leave and go to South Africa originally? Is your wife South African, and is she a therapist?
Went to South Africa with my parents. I believe my dad was running away from mafia. And through some analytical work, I realized that I think my dad was part of those people who were tearing Russia apart and selling it off into pieces.
So I also have a similar story that I can share on your channel. But anyway,
nice. So that's why, because we packed up so quickly, we sold all our flats. We got very, very rich in the 90s when country was falling apart and people were without electricity in the cities and starving, and we were thriving with 7 flats, and that's when we ran to South Africa. Within 2 weeks, we packed up and left. My wife is not South African. She is from Vladivostok, originally from that side of Russia, and she's relocated to Saint Petersburg through actually doing plaster work, which is this amazing plaster work she's done behind me. She was renovating flats and buying bad flats, renovating them and selling them. She saw a picture in the 90s of American Dream. It was a renovated interior of a beautiful home. And she was like, oh my God, she's got to repeat that. So through an American magazine, she was inspired and she started doing that. And she made big money on that, which she also lost all of it. She is doing this method. It's called consciousness integration. You can describe it, but it's not very popular because nobody wants to look at their own pain, and nobody wants to realize that they cause all the shit in their lives. But they like to blame fate, God, and others for their misfortunes. And so that's why the method is not very popular, but the method is amazing. I stopped marijuana, I stopped alcohol, my egos calmed the hell down, and I became a really much better person through doing this work. So
it sounds kind of like CBT that my wife does. It's cognitive behavioral therapy. So the idea being that, you know, meeting with a therapist and talking about your troubles is fine, but you want to try to sort it out and work through it and kind of put it behind you. I probably did a terrible job explaining it, but
yeah,
the cognitive behavioral therapist can leave comments and correct us.
Go for the root, the reboot from the root, like turnip, the root. So yeah, so sounds very similar. Can I just shoot through a few things that people didn't know about Russia?
Oh, please, yeah, tell us.
First, it is really, 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 really safe, really safe. Everywhere, 99% of cities you can walk up at 3 o'clock in the morning, nobody will touch you. Low taxes. I pay 4% on turnover, and that's it. I don't submit any paperwork. I don't do anything, and I am honest about it. I just pay 4%. So when a sale comes through, I register it as a sale, and I just pay 4%. Free schooling. Childcare is free. Free healthcare. It's not obviously a typical net life hospital where you have a TV and $1,000 a day bill. But should you break a leg or do something terrible to yourself, you will get really sick, you will be fixed up. Very important to know, because that next thing, you don't need insurance, health insurance. You can, but you don't need it. You can because if you want to really up that stunning American hospital, then okay, you pay for it. Of course, it is there. But should you break something, you will be fixed up.
Yeah, you can pay for even an English-speaking hospital if you want to pay for it, but you don't have to.
Exactly. Car insurance is $50 per year. Compulsory car insurance is $50 per year. That's quite important. Government gives you money and property for free if you have more than 3 kids. I'm living in a 15-minute city, and it's amazing. Everything is so close. There's no traffic jams. I can get supplies really fast. I can walk anywhere. I can cycle to my land, and it's another world. I'm in the forest, nature. But city is dense, and it's there, and it's all 15 minutes to any point. I can go to the beach in 15 minutes. So maybe this 15-minute city is not such a scary idea as long as you're not policed. I kept on running away from cities all my life, thinking that the city is evil, and it's not. If you guys think that you're going to get to nature and suddenly you're burning inside your heart chakra, I'll be very specific, the burning, the agitation that make your legs shake, your jaw shake, and everything else. If you think that that's going to go away when you get to nature, I'd like to just fast track you. It's going to get worse. Because when you're in the city, if this starts happening, you can go to a pub, you can go to theater, you can go to ice skating, you can go to this, you can go there. When you're in nature and this starts cluttering, then there's nowhere to go. And it just amplifies and amplifies and amplifies loud and loud until you start shaking. And I've experienced it many times. I lived on my land in South Africa. I nearly went mad there. I lived here in nature. I nearly went mad without inner work. And I'll be very specific inner work that we touched on during this talk. No nature is going to help you. This cluttering feeling, which makes us eventually do nasty things to others. Because of what I spoke of earlier. When I feel bad, I will make sure that those who feel better than me, they feel worse than me, because then I have a program that I'll bump myself up. About the business, I have a really cool business, and maybe, Joseph, we can do something together here. The business is like this. Okay, you can, an American or anyone can get a citizenship in Russia. There are a few ways, but one of the easiest ways is to invest $150,000 into a business or a property. It's one of the ways to get a citizenship. We'll call it golden visa or whatever, okay? I propose we develop little villages okay, with a fence around in nature. In nature, so, you know, it doesn't matter where, but somewhere beautiful. Why not, if we have a choice, you know? But fenced off, where we have, let's say, 5, 10 homes, with one road coming in, well designed. Everybody has their own little piece of land, but there's also a common piece of land that things like food forest, garden. So it's not an eco-village and it's not co-housing. It is private property, but there is that bit of interaction where why it's important. Like, imagine if we're living close by and you plant a giant sequoia tree. And suddenly my food forest, my vegetable garden is in full shade. Now imagine if our food forest is on the northern side, taller, back northern side is taller, and on the south side, our vegetable gardens. So it's just somewhat planned, where there's not a road all over like in current urban sprawl, but there's one road and there's pathways going to in front so kids can play. So taking the best of cottage, like a cottage development, what's it called, townhouse, taking some ideas from there, taking some ideas from co-housing, taking some ideas from eco-villages, but without the dogma, okay? And creating a little village, a little 10 home property development, but really, really well thought and well planned with one pond. Nice big, you know, depends on the size, amount of homes, but a nice lake or pond in the front there with the vegetable gardens. So now you suddenly have a much cheaper investment, because now usually people would make their own pool for every home that they seldom swim in, and suddenly instead of 10 pools, you have one pond, like a natural wetland pond. Yeah, and a really well thought through eco, not a commune, like I don't know what to say. It's a property development. It's called capitalistic, but where people get to know each other on Zoom prior to buying in. Maybe, and they have a say in their thing, in how and what gets planned. So this is what I'm proposing, that we get people on board, because I can't do this alone. We obviously need a financial backup. So the Americans that are watching, you guys get your citizenship, you'll have your eco home, and possibly if you want to, and part of you could invest into shares into this property development business, so we can purchase our own 3D printer and we can get more developed. This is my life's work, Joseph. I've been going, and people can look at my channel, creating a little piece of heaven on earth in a true sense.
It sounds very exciting, and your channel is already very exciting. And you guys see his enthusiasm. And please, his channel name's on the screen now. It's in the description. Click on that. Go watch his YouTube channel. He's got these fantastic, magical, creative homes that he's building. I just love it. I think you'll love it too. And also, click over right now and watch me on his channel, because he's going to interview me now. And I will share something on his channel that I've never shared on my channel before. So you guys got to go over and check that out and hear more of our discussion.
And join our Telegram, because we don't know when YouTube will be shut down. The algorithms that brought us together. Actually, what brought us together, besides the algorithm was first. Second was Expat Harry. Do you know him?
I mean, I think I've seen his comments on my channel, and I watched him on that one episode because the algorithm said someone mentioned. I was like, what? Someone mentioned me, and I clicked, and it was this video, and then I watched you guys talk for 45 minutes about construction, and then right towards the end, they're like, hey, there's this guy, he has this channel in Russia, and I see my face. I'm like, that's me. So then I went over and watched your channel and learned about you.
Okay, yeah, I mentioned you because I was so excited that somebody else is sharing this truth about Russia, that we are really, you know, kind-hearted people. Not everybody, but mostly people don't have, we're not those people that are presented in American media as terrible, warlike. Yeah, it's the opposite. Everything you hear in the media is the opposite of the truth, generally speaking. So, but we'll keep that for our interview with Joseph on my channels.
All right, what did you think of that? Has your perception of Russia changed? Click like, click subscribe, ring the bell notification, click the box to see what happens next, and I'll see you in the next video. Is it a moth?
No, it's a cat. She's trying to come down an aluminum ladder.
I keep seeing what looks like a moth flying around. The moth combined with the sunlight just looks like you're in Lord of the Rings. It's very romantic and beautiful.
It's all good. I probably need to. There's the sun that's hitting.
Just keep your hand right there for the next hour.